Welcome to the show. I'm Jason Whitlock, and we'll get into the Cavs' absolutely wild day of trades, and if the 49ers were smart to make Jimmy G the highest paid player in the NFL. Speak for Yourself starts now. Man, do we have a great show. Sorry Cowherd's not here, but I got a group of basketball experts, and we got a lot of basketball to talk. Cowherd's out today. Fox NBA analyst Jim Jackson and Chris Broussard, and Fox Sports Radio host Doug Gottlieb. All right, let's start in the NBA, where today has been absolutely crazy. The Cavs decided to blow up their entire roster before today's trade deadline with a series of moves to send Isaiah Thomas, Dwayne Wade, and several others to a bunch of different teams around the league. In addition to IT and Wade, the Cavs got rid of Jay Crowder, Derrick Rose, Iman Shumpert, Channing Frye, their first-round pick. Jim Brown got moved to the Colts. They added Jordan Clarkson, Larry Nance Jr., Rodney Hood, and George Hill, which begs the question, did they get better today? And let me just say this before these experts get in here. I think they got younger. I think they got more athletic.
But
I think they got better defensively. I think they got a little bit better.
they got better. And I look at this as being this, is that, as we know, organizations rarely say, we made a mistake. This is Cleveland saying, we made a mistake with that Isaiah Thomas trade. They rectified the situation by going in and basically cleaning house, understanding that the mix didn't work. And rarely will you see an organization do that. To me, they got younger, they got quicker. I think they had more enthusiasm. Will that put them over the top against Golden State? Not in my opinion. But will it make it so now they get out of the East, which was a question? Yeah, with this crew they got right here. And the locker room, more importantly, the locker room dynamics are better.
Boom, that's what changed today. They saved their locker room. Everybody thinks that you take a former MVP in Derrick Rose, you take a finals MVP in Dwayne Wade, and an MVP candidate in Isaiah Thomas, and we'll just figure it out. It's basketball, right? At Dwayne Wade, at this point in his career, he'll be able to accept fewer minutes. Derrick Rose, $2 million, he's just happy to be there. That's great until you get in the middle of the season and guys are used to playing 35 minutes and guys are used to being alphas, and there's just too many alphas in there. So by my estimation, look, there's some hits there, there's some misses, there's some misperception of who they got and what they got, but they saved their locker room. And they probably energized LeBron James because he always likes new. He likes these new teams, and this is like going to work for a new team.
Like Jim said, if the goal's to beat Golden State, and ultimately that is the goal, you're not beating Golden State with this team. But I feel like over the last few months, the goal is just get out of the East. We know we can't beat Golden State. Just win the East, and I think they're going to do that. They definitely got better defensively with the athleticism and the energy they have. They'll be better. Rodney Hood, I assume he's going to start at the 2. I think he should instead of JR. If you look at JR Smith, he's had 10 double-figure scoring nights this season. They're 8-2 in those games. If they get anything from that 2-guard spot, and Rodney Hood can get them 17, 18 a night, to your point, I guess what that grunt was about, maybe JR might not be happy about that, but at this point, you had to do it, and I think now the second unit is Jordan Clarkson.
Shocked to hear all of y'all say that they get out of the East because, again,
I didn't say that.
Well, these two seem to think they get out of the East.
Is so bad.
But again, they got a short period of time to gel.
And it's not like they're dominating the East right now. Like, I understand. I understand we're acting like, but we're taking the East previously, right? Like, Washington's actually playing better without John Wall. He comes back.
That's 5 games.
I understand. This was not a team. This was a collection of individuals. They got humiliated by Houston at home. I can't remember a team quitting like we saw them quit against Houston. They got humiliated. Then you're up 21 and lose by 18 to Orlando. They had so many problems. Forget about the East. They just had to stabilize things, right? They just had to plug all the leaks, and now we can figure out. But I'm not willing to absolutely commit to them winning the East because, like Jason said, you're not going to get Kevin Love back until maybe the last couple weeks of the season. Like, there's no training camp. LeBron barely practices because of his age and because of how much he plays. How are you going to make it a team?
But here's my thing. I look at it a little bit differently because you don't have a ball-centric person that's coming in that actually needs it in his hand. So I think dynamically from an offensive perspective, you're able to institute certain plays, not a lot, that can get the continuity a lot sooner. It's not going to happen overnight, but this is not like bringing another Isaiah Thomas in where you have to isolate and get him involved. So it's a little bit different dynamic. And to me, in the East still, I think Milwaukee would be interesting to see what happens long term. I think they're getting better defensively. Washington is still up in the air. But the key you're talking about is either Toronto or Boston. Those are the two teams that you're really talking about.
Okay, but
it's easier to fit in role players than a
Exactly.
star. You don't have one. You had Wade, Rose, and Isaiah, who all are used to being ball dominant. George Hill's going to play good defense, shoot the three. He's not going to get in LeBron's way offensively. Hood, we know what he is. You know, Nance will come off the bench and bring energy.
I'm trying to think through, though, your deal. If Rodney Hood plays who's the other? The two. Who's the other guard?
George
Hill. I think that, in my opinion, the starting back should be Hill
right?
and Hood.
And then probably Jeff Green right now.
Well, right now maybe. I think when Love gets back, it's Tristan, Love, LeBron, Hill, and Hood.
Like, look, it's a pretty good team, but here's one thing we're missing on. Who's going to go get him a bucket?
Well, that's it.
Outside of LeBron James.
That's why I say they can't beat. I always look at it in a 7-game series. That's how I look at it. They can't beat Golden State in 7 games because you don't have that Kyrie factor. You don't have that other guy that's out there that can go get it besides LeBron James.
So to kind of jump on to Jason's point, which I agree with, why are we making the assumption they're going to get out of the East win?
Because the East is much different than the West.
I'm not disputing
I would
it's not
argue
much
that
different.
they might be the 6th best team in the West,
I'm not
even when
disputing-
they're playing well.
I'm not disputing
But in
that.
the East, they
my
can
point
win.
is, like Jason, like they're not going to be a cohesive team because lack of practice time, lack of playing together, and don't have Kevin Love till late in the year. And then even when they are together, you got one dude in LeBron who can go get you a bucket. And
That's
Jason
a heck
and I,
of a dude.
And he is a heck of a dude. But Jason and I were pointing out last night that what could have been the game-winning shot in regulation, like he settles for a jump shot.
He didn't settle for much else.
But if you
Look, he was great.
We got to move.
Hello, everybody. Jason McIntyre here. Thank you for listening to the Speak for Yourself podcast. But I wanted to tell you about another podcast at Fox Sports that we are really excited about, and that's Alexi Lalas's State of the Union podcast. That's right. U.S. soccer legend Alexi Lalas will be partnering up with Fox soccer guru and researcher extraordinaire David Mosse to review the top storylines in soccer across the globe. Each week, Alexi will give his State of the Union on American soccer as it rebuilds for the future. So subscribe right now and listen to the first episode for free on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Now back to the show.
Well, it's been an eventful 24 hours for LeBron. First, he got a triple-double and a buzzer beater last night. And today, he got himself a brand new team. This flurry of trades will no doubt lead to a flurry of speculation about LeBron's future. And that's the point I wanted to get into. This team, if Kyrie Irving was left with this team and they have Brooklyn's pick, I kind of like it. For LeBron James, I do think, I will say this, I thought there was a 0% chance LeBron stayed previously. Now I think there's a 10% chance.
All this made it go to 10%.
Yeah.
0 to 10, that's
Pretty good. I just don't. With LeBron, it's like you just don't know. I mean, because it fluctuates in regards to the emotion of, like LeBron said, I'm in it for the long term, but that means only this year.
Yeah, he
quickly corrected it. He said, I'm in it for the long term. And then he said, well, you know, you got to make sure, I don't want to quit on my teammates for this year. So you don't know. I don't know. I try to figure it out.
Evaluate it this way. What do you think LeBron thinks of this collection of players?
I think he thinks it's okay. I think it gives him a better chance. I think it allows LeBron to be LeBron without other egos involved in regards to having to have the basketball. It allows him to be the LeBron we've seen before. He's going to get energy. He's going to get relief. And they have an opportunity, correct me if I'm wrong, when you're talking about playing a small lineup, they have versatility now. A lot of guys can interchange and switch because of Nance, because of Green, you know, because of Hill and Hood.
They just had too many specialists before.
Exactly.
There's not as many specialists. This feels like shopping when you're hungry, man. It feels like way too much.
I do that all the time.
And it's a mistake, right? Don't you ever get home?
You feel good in the moment, though.
But
you feel good in the moment.
You don't think they got better?
I do. Again, I said they got more athletic. They got younger.
Does it make LeBron more likely?
I think he likes it in the short term because everybody likes saying they like new stuff. But then you're going to get around and be like, all right, but we're not better. We're not good. We're better, but we're still not elite. We're not as good as Houston, Oklahoma City, Golden State. Maybe when Boston gets Gordon Hayward back, they're not as good as Boston when Boston is at full strength. But Boston has.
But I don't think this move to do that, though. This move right now couldn't make them better than those teams. Yeah. Well, no matter what happened. The moves they made right now weren't going to make them better than those four teams you made.
This is like, maybe there's a better way. Like, right, Valentine's Day's coming up. So it's like your wife or your girlfriend tells you, like, you're not listening to me. We don't have long conversations. So you get her flowers the next day, right? Or you buy her something.
Right.
And then she's like, well, flowers are great, but that still didn't make us, like, talk more, right? He still doesn't have another star player who can take any of the pressure off him. He's just surrounded by younger dudes that are happy to be there.
I don't think he knows at this point. I think, like you said, this makes it a little more likely. It shows you, number one, the front office can do some things, okay? They can get things done. They didn't pull off a blockbuster deal, but this was impressive. I think even LeBron will have to admit that. This guy was trying to make the team better. Dan Gilbert, for all their problems, he spends money. So that's what you want in an owner, a guy that spends money. I think it comes down to two other things for LeBron. One, do you feel it's better to dominate the East and probably keep getting beat in the finals, or go west and maybe not even make the finals, but at least you don't keep adding losses to the finals? That's a factor for LeBron. And then where else does he go? Like, if Paul George stays in OKC and DeMarcus Cousins obviously is hurt, I don't think the Lakers are offering him the max. Who's going to LA with him? And then, Houston, okay. San Antonio, Philly, I mean, Embiid, can you count on his help? Like,
that's back to the East.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Back to the East. If he said, and go ahead.
Well, I want to ask you all this. Add a Marvin Bagley. Let's say this draft pick works out.
Go.
Okay.
Next year, you add a Marvin Bagley or the kid from Arizona.
They're not getting Marvin Bagley's going to be #1 overall pick.
Well, the Brooklyn
this
pick
could be when Kyrie was #1, it was the 8th slotted pick. Right. When Anthony Bennett was #1, it was 9th. Or even if they get in the top 5 and get a Michael Porter or a Bagley or the kid from Arizona.
That's not going to help you win. LeBron James is 34 for 35 years. They're not going to help you win
there
the first 2 or 3
are
years.
some rookies. I don't know if those guys are that. You might know the college game better. But there are rookies that come in and play well right away. So maybe one of those guys.
I think they'll play well. But again, there's a difference between playing well and being productive and helping you in the NBA playoffs. In the NBA playoffs, like, Magic Johnson's the only guy I can think of who was 19 years old playing great in the NBA Finals. Outside of that, most of them are mid-20s.
He was the second guy, had Kareem.
Outside of that, most of those guys are mid-20s on.
This would be like walking into a Kareem situation for some rookie.
Having Kareem and then, having LeBron and then coming in.
Yeah, LeBron would be better in Cleveland with this roster and a Marvin Bagley than he would going to Lakers.
But hold on, but you guys are like diminishing what the possibility of the Lakers, because you're assuming you're taking a snapshot of right now. Paul George isn't coming right now.
Well, here's the question.
If they get that guy.
The Lakers said they're going to keep Isaiah. How does that work with him?
No, they're going to keep Isaiah for this year.
Yeah, this year, but I'm saying we're going to keep him here. Another correction.
Stick and stay. We'll get into the Lakers coming up. All right, welcome back to the show. Jim Jackson and Doug Gottlieb are back, and we're joined now by the co-host of The Herd, Christine Leahy. Let's move to the Lakers, who are on the other end of today's much-talked-about Isaiah Thomas trade, acquiring IT, Channing Frye, and the Cavaliers' first-round pick in exchange for Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance Jr. The move clears enough cap space for the Lakers to sign 2 max free agents this offseason, which Magic sounds confident he'll be able to do, saying, quote, "I wouldn't have made the move if I wasn't confident. We have got to take the next step. I don't want to stay in this position. I want us to be in the playoffs, and the only path to that is to add to the roster we already have." I'm not as confident because, one, Paul George seems to be in love with Russell Westbrook. And so now the big free agent out there, the only one, is LeBron James. And I'm not sure if LeBron James is going to look at the Lakers situation as ideal for him. And so they're going to have max money, but who they going to spend it on?
Good question. DeMarcus Cousins, maybe, depending on what happens with the injury. But come on.
You can't even play him for a year.
They've paid people coming off injuries before. It's not the first time that happens. But also you got to look forward to 2019, to the free agent class then as well. So I think it's a long-term play. They got rid of some money, got rid of Clarkson. Yes. They opened up opportunities. Now, if they get a big-time free agent, again, it's not a lot in this class. You're talking about it next year that they can go after. But I think what they want to do is show that they have the room and flexibility, Dougie, to be able to tempt a Paul George. I don't know if Paul is going to move and say, depending on what happens in OKC, if they can make it to a Western Conference final, if they can get past Golden State, it'll be a tougher move for a guy like Paul George, I would think, to have to leave there to kind of start all over with L.A.
Well, there's a couple different parts to it. I think he's backpedaling a little bit from the report earlier this week about them refocusing on 2019. And really what that's about is, Magic couldn't keep his mouth shut, and they haven't been able to control what comes out and what doesn't come out. And so not only have they gotten fined, but they also diminished the trade value of Clarkson, Nance, and Julius Randle, who they were unable to move today, right? The whole league knows you're trying to clear cap space. Now nobody's going to help you. They're going to try and get a better deal. So now that he was able to move Clarkson, now he's feeling better about having that cap space. And, of course, he's going to appear confident even if he isn't confident. I don't buy the Paul George is super happy thing, not because I don't think he's super happy, but it doesn't matter if he's happy in February. It's if he's happy in June. Kevin Durant walked off the floor after losing and said, I'm coming back. Of course I expect to come back. He told he told Russell Westbrook he planned on coming back. And then he changed his mind. At the end of the day, do you want to come to L.A.? Do you want to play for the Lakers? You're from L.A. and you come back home. And if not, they still have the chance of Kawhi, L.A. guy, coming back home, and Klay Thompson, whose dad's a broadcaster for the Lakers, coming back home. They're putting themselves in position for, hey, somebody wants to come this year, we'll make the right call. If not, one-year deals, and we'll do it again next year. Somebody will take that money and play for the purple and gold.
The way that Paul George, though, talks about Russell Westbrook makes me really think he's staying there. It's so different from the way that Kevin Durant was talking. He's saying that they really mesh together on and off the court and that he plans on staying. That kind of gives me every indication there. And I liked the Lakers' plan, the original plan, to wait until 2019 because, as you mentioned, they have Klay Thompson, Jimmy Butler, Kawhi Leonard, who all make more sense, I think, coming there. Jimmy Butler, I know, has talked to Kobe Bryant for years and really would like to play for the Lakers. Klay Thompson has connections there, too. And then even if now, let's say they get LeBron. If LeBron comes to the Lakers, he's saying, I want to live in LA. I don't care about winning anymore because it's not going to work. Who are you going to get? Chris Paul's a free agent this summer, so then you'd have to trade Lonzo away. And is LeBron and Chris Paul, is that going to win you a championship? Is that going to beat the Warriors? No. Even if you get Paul George, I don't think that's going to get you a championship with those two. Wait till 2019.
You sound like today might have been a mistake for the Lakers.
Not necessarily a mistake. I think that they're clearing space to see what they can do. You have to at least try maybe to get LeBron. And even if LeBron does come, that's good for the Lakers. I just don't see it happening because it's not going to be the best place to give LeBron a chance to win. And if he comes here, I think that's him conceding. I'm not going to win anymore.
Look, the Lakers today, I don't think this has any a real effect on them. It really doesn't, because they're trying to get rid of everybody from the previous regime. Mm-hmm. Everybody. The only guy who's going to be from the previous regime is Luke, and Luke is close with Jeannie, and that's why he's still good for now, and they're playing well right now.
Yep.
But everybody else that they're going to keep is from this regime. Everybody, all the rest. The reason they've had such struggles early in the season was because guys like Jordan Clarkson were worried about putting up numbers because where they're going to be playing next year, and now that settles that. So I think that he feels confident because however mixed up it is how they got to the plan, the fine earlier this week, the embarrassment of maybe having to look through 2019, they will have the cap space. They are getting some development out of their younger players. And it looks like they got the steal of the draft in Kuzma. And we'll see what happens with LeBron. We'll see what happens with Paul George. Like, again, I love Russell Westbrook and how they're playing together when they beat Golden State, but they had just lost 4 in a row. It ain't all roses. It ain't all perfect. And all that matters is how you play and how tight you are in the playoffs. How that feeling is after your last game with Paul George, that will determine if he stays.
Absolutely, but also think about this. Rob Pelinka and Magic Johnson, do you really think that they're going to let LeBron get away with the kind of stuff that he pulls in Cleveland and wanting that much control? No way.
But see, that's a great point.
And LeBron's not going to want to go there and have to relinquish all that control.
Well, that's part of the issue that happened in Miami in regards to Pat Riley, Mickey Erickson wasn't going to let LeBron and everything else run the organization. That was something. At Cleveland, he's able to do that. If you ever go to a Cleveland game, please, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about in regards to how his crew, and crew being in the right sense of the word, his management, they run that. With other organizations, San Antonio, the Lakers.
Yeah, people say San Antonio.
You're not going to do it.
No.
It's a protocol in which has to happen.
I think he's going to Houston.
Sometimes you got to push your children out of the nest, though. LeBron's the last part of his career, he may have to put some distance between himself, between Rich Paul, Maverick Carter, and those guys. They can stand on their own 2 feet. All right, welcome back. Doug Gottlieb is back, and we're joined now by Fox NFL analyst Mark Schlereth and the founder of the Big Lead, Jason McIntyre. Let's move to the NFL, where Jimmy Garoppolo reportedly agreed to a 5-year, $137 million contract with the 49ers. Garoppolo has started just 7 games in his entire career, but will now have the highest average salary in NFL history, higher even than the guy he used to back up. As one NFL reporter tweeted today, Garoppolo to average $27.5 million in annual salary over the next 5 years. Tom Brady to make $14 million in base salary in 2018. I got no problem with this. No problem. The NFL, every year in the draft, they pay on potential. They draft you on potential. They used to give rookies big mammoth contracts. They don't anymore. I've seen the guy 7 games. I'd have given him $138 million. I would give him $28 million a year. I love the kid. I got no problem with this contract.
I don't have any problem with it either. And having done one of his games and having met him and talked to Kyle Shanahan, now I've known Kyle Shanahan since he was a kid, Mike Shanahan's son, because Mike was coaching and Kyle was like a ball boy, for crying out loud. He was always around. And Kyle told me this. He said, hey, listen, this is what we know about this situation. If we still, at the end of the day, at the end of the season, if we don't have a good feeling for Jimmy Garoppolo, we'll franchise him. That's what we'll do. Guess what this tells me? They got a pretty good feeling about Jimmy Garoppolo. He said, coming out of college, he worked him out. He said, the only thing you really know coming out of college about these spread quarterbacks is arm talent. That's it. That's the only thing you can evaluate, because you don't know how they can assimilate information, take that information, dissect it at the line of scrimmage, pre-snap read, and make the right reads and make the right throws. And he said the arm talent matches everything out. Everything else. The guy's got great football acumen. He can digest a system. He can take it out of the field and be successful with it. You saw what they did. This team was one of the worst teams in football, and he comes in there to play quarterback, and it was night and day. The confidence he rose, people rose to his level. I mean, he brought people along with him. So I have no problem with this contract. This is not, I got a lot of this, it's Matt Castle Jr. and it's this, that. No, this is not. This kid is a talented football player.
Wins above replacement, right? Second worst team in the NFL.
There you go.
Like, here's the control group. Here's you without me. Here's you with me. I mean, pretty simple. You know the happiest man in America is right now? Kirk Cousins.
Sure.
Because Kirk Cousins is a free agent, and all these teams still need a quarterback, and maybe he doesn't get that money, but that's the market. Right? That's the market now. $27.5 million, 5 years guaranteed. I'm Kirk Cousins. No, he's not getting that, but it doesn't matter. If you go from the
I think he'll get more than that.
I mean, look, Alex Smith gets $17.5 million. Okay, so somewhere between $17.5 and $27.5 million. That's what Kirk Cousins is worth.
I don't think you could put a price on having a face of the franchise, right? This is a franchise who's been through a lot the last few years. Jim Tomsula, the Chip Kelly debacle, the kneeling with Kaepernick. You know, this is going to be their best quarterback since Steve Young. He was playing last year. As you said, the roster was weak. These guys couldn't run a route to my mailbox, okay? You can't even name their running backs, their receivers, bunch of young guys, and Garoppolo was lights out. I think this is a steal. I mean, the idea that you would franchise tag him, and after seeing what Cousins and the Redskins are going through, there's no way they were going to franchise tag him. Great move for the 49ers.
Jeff Garcia put up some decent numbers there, too, after Steve Young. But you're right. And it comes down to you built a new stadium, you can't put people in it, and now all of a sudden you can't stop watching this. And what's crazy about it is when Flacco won the Super Bowl and signed the biggest contract in NFL history, I think all of us thought that was a mistake, right? And here's a guy who's only started 7 games, right, and all of us watched a lot of football like, that makes total sense.
But here's the reason why, and people that may have a problem with, he only played 7 games. I don't think there's a player in the NFL or a quarterback in the NFL at a high school level or college level. If you show up in San Francisco, given what they had done the last few years, and you lead them to 5 straight victories, you deserve that money. I'm a high school kid. Anybody that could do that, transform a team the way he did instantly, you deserve that money. Anybody complaining about this is just looking for things to complain about. And if the guy gets hit by a truck or if he tears an ACL next year, this is still money well spent. And if he turns into a flop, if he's Matt Flynn 2.0, I'm not going to second guess this contract for a minute because of what he did in those 5 games. it's worth the risk.
And when you sit down and talk to him, like the talent is there, just the professionalism, all those things. Well, I talked to him, just said, give me something you learned from Tom Brady. And, you're expecting him to talk about, or at least I was expecting him to talk about, something mechanical or something, that he just said this flat out. He goes, playing quarterback is not a job, it's a lifestyle. And you've got to be committed lifestyle-wise to being a quarterback. He learned it. He saw it firsthand. He saw it with the best that's ever done it. And so you couple that with just the immense arm talent. Kyle Shanahan told me this. He goes, I've never seen a guy spin it better than this guy. He goes, now he may not lead the league or win a contest for who can throw it the furthest, but he goes, on a deep out, ain't nobody in the league can get it there quicker than him because of the spin rate of the football and how he drives
and he
it.
was with Matt Ryan and Kirk Cousins the last couple of years.
Right.
But what I also love about this, so they have their GM in place, John Lynch. They've got their coach in place, and now you have your quarterback. Now you can build the roster around them just as Seattle's crumbling, right? We know Seattle's struggling. The Arizona's down a little bit. They are ascending.
Speaking of continuity, by the way, Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, they signed 6-year deals together, right? 6-year deals together, the exact same amount of pay. They are committed to this. Now all of a sudden they finish their first year. Guess what? All 3 of those guys will will expire. Their contracts expire at the same time.
Probably are they sending Bill Belichick a thank you note today? Thank you very much for that.
All right, welcome back to the show. Jim Jackson, Chris Broussard, and Doug Gottlieb are back. Let's return to Cleveland, where LeBron looked energized last night, even before the flurry of Cavaliers trades today. LeBron dropped a triple-double on Minnesota and had a crucial block on Jimmy Butler in overtime right before sinking the game winner at the buzzer. After the game, LeBron was asked if he had put in some extra work amid all the Cavs' struggles.
Am I doing stuff behind the scenes? Oh, okay. So you know the answer to that. I'm always doing stuff behind the scenes. I'm always working on my game, and no matter if it's going well for me or not, I'm still putting in the work. So, you just trust it, and let it go.
Does this lift the national TV ban from you?
Ooh, it was a good win. It was a good win, but our record still stinks on national television. We got to try. We got a couple coming up, so we got to try to change that.
That, ladies and gentlemen, was a going-away party last night. That's what that was. I stand by everything I said yesterday about LeBron. I enjoyed the performance, and it was spectacular. But I stand by what I said yesterday. I don't like the way LeBron has been playing since Christmas. I think it's intentional. That was a going-away party. He knew this trade was going down. He threw one last party for D. Wade and Jay Crowder and IT and everybody and put on a show. But I don't think that's the LeBron we're going to see the rest of this season. I still think he's in a little feud, war with Dan Gilbert, but that is the LeBron. If he was trying to really win and compete and be the LeBron James he can be, we should see that LeBron more often. I'm asking you guys, will we see that LeBron the rest of this season?
Well, it takes a lot of energy to be that LeBron. Yep. For the rest of the season. But what I do think is that LeBron is known for this. When he gets new teammates, he's going to make sure he integrates them in there. He's going to be that ultimate team player. I think he'll pick and choose his poison, pick and choose his spots, when he wants to go, when he wants to pull back, because ultimately the goal for him is to be ready for the playoff, to be able to play at a high level, and to also be able to get his new teammates to a point where they're confident, that they understand what Cleveland needs to do to win. Okay, and that's what the rest of this regular season is all going to be about with LeBron. We're going to see spurts like this. Yep. He's going to have games, but his big games, to me, are going to be the back end of that playoff.
Okay, so can I hedge kind of somewhere in between you two? Because I agree with you, Jason. What he was doing was intentional. There was something wrong. And then supposedly before the game last night, he was told they're going to make trades, and he looked different, right? So if now all this, right? So if you think it's going away party, that means he's back to shut it down after this. I don't think so.
He won't go back. He was so sluggish. Yeah, he won't go back to playing what he was. He was averaging 22.5 points in like the last 20 games or something like that. So he won't go back to that guy. He won't be what you saw last night. He was guarding Jimmy Butler at the end of the game. Yeah. You're not gonna see that, him doing that late. When you will see this LeBron, though, is in the playoffs. Because this reminded me of what we saw last year with LeBron against Toronto when he averaged 36 points and was literally toying with them, spinning the basketball, shooting threes. Boston game 1, he had 38, ended the series in the first game. Look, playoffs, no back-to-backs, more rest, every game means something. That's when you'll see that LeBron James we saw last night.
I still think you'll see more of this, but I'm with Jimmy in that it takes a lot at 34 to do this every night. So I think at some point he's got to take some nights.
Jordan did it at 34.
He's got to take some nights off.
Jordan
at some
did
point,
it at 34.
But Jordan,
he wasn't in his 15th year either. Though.
Yeah, but Jordan did it
was
differently,
34.
though. How Jordan played was a lot different because he didn't handle the ball all the time like LeBron does. He didn't set everybody up, so Jordan could pick and choose his spots. But what I saw, and I'm looking at it from a management perspective, I'm looking at LeBron. His body language was just different.
Right.
His energy was different.
He cared.
Well, he
Jason,
did.
Why would he go back to not caring?
Because again, that was I'm telling you, that was about D-Wade. We going out on a high note, baby. That was a
D-Wade
going
didn't
away.
even play.
I know he did, but it's still.
One thing I've been told is this: that LeBron feeds off the energy of teammates.
Right.
Like he
Right.
has to believe in his teammates. And he was sulking. He was dispirited with the team.
You could see his body language. He didn't even have a lot of communication on the court with his teammates.
Jason, I think that he was trying to send a message, but the message wasn't he's trying to destroy Cleveland. It was trying to, hey, we got some problems in this locker room. Fix it. And when they fixed it today, I think you'll see peak LeBron more often in the second half of the season.
Let me give you guys a little reminder of history. This is not the first time the Cavaliers, and Broussard remembers this, 2008, they traded 6 guys at the trading deadline for 4 players. And you know what? They exited in the second round of the playoffs that year. This ain't the first time LeBron's team has needed a drastic overhaul right before the trading deadline. It didn't work then, and that's 2008 LeBron. That's some good wine.
Yeah, but look at that roster, though.
Yeah,
look at that
Oh,
roster.
remember they brought in Shaq, Antoine James.
Yeah,
not in
Antoine-
2000.
And the East was a lot tougher.
back
You had
then.
Orlando with Dwight Howard. You had the big 3 in Boston. The East was a lot tougher back then.
History, revisionist, you forgot about that.
Yeah, you left that
You
out.
left that part out. You left
Thanking your
that part out.
Look, I'm going back to what I said yesterday. The one thing you're guaranteed with LeBron is a headache. You're guaranteed.
He's high maintenance.
Well, he's high maintenance. The emotional part of it, you are guaranteed.
high maintenance is the best way to
But
put
you
it.
got to deal with that with any kind of with most of the superstars. I'm gonna say most. I'm not gonna say all.
Jordan was at war with
Tim
his front
Duncan
office.
and those guys in San Antonio, totally different.
Well, name me the other all-time great superstar that's twice had his teams jettison 6 players at the trade deadline. This is like the fourth.
But you don't think they should have done what they did last night?
Look,
Or
that's not a
today, I
knock
guess?
on. That's not a knock on LeBron. That's a fact on LeBron. That this is the second time 6 players have been the Cavs traded away Andrew Wiggins, gave up 2 first-round picks for Timofey Mozgov, just gave up another first-round pick. Man, there's a lot of action, a lot of change around
When have we
LeBron
ever seen a
James.
player in any sport have this much control over an organization? We haven't. Now, when Magic came in, he got rid of Westfall. I mean, you know what I mean? So
it's basketball, okay? And
Yeah.
all these guys grew up in the AAU era, okay, where dudes switch teams a lot more now, and moving guys in and moving guys out is not as problematic as it was 5, 10, 15 years ago. Not just superstars, but also ancillary pieces. So I would tell you that part of it, you have to take the context of all these guys grew up in this AAU era where...
Why do they play the game, Doug?
Huh?
Why do they play the game?
To win?
And has the man won as many games as he should have, as many championships as he should have, as some of the more stable guys that are able to sit in one spot and not have all this
the league
chaos?
is not stable anymore. The league is not stable anymore.
But that's also a different discussion. It's a different league now. It's a different league now than it was then.
I do think, look, if he had played for a Popovich or a Phil Jackson or
Can't
a
play
Pat
for
Riley,
those guys, though.
I think they would have had the credibility.
What you mean
to
he can't
get
play
him.
for him now or when he was 19 and first
That's
got
what I'm saying.
molded?
When he's 19.
Even
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. Molded,
now,
he could.
Yeah,
But now-
exactly.
but
now
he
he
would have
can't.
won more
People who
titles
say-
with a guy like that.
People who say he'll go to San Antonio, like, no, he won't.
I don't think he will because
They say check.
How
you
much
gotta
power
check
does
your
he
ego out
want?
the door, right? Check yourself.
I just don't
Going
even
to
see him
Lithuania.
going to the city.
With Isaiah Thomas and Jay Crowder both shipped out of town today, all Cleveland has left from sending Kyrie Irving to the Celtics last summer is Brooklyn's first-round pick. Obviously, Kyrie is thriving in Boston while the Cavs have been in disarray since he and LeBron broke up. All right, I got 2 takeaways here. Clearly, Kyrie Irving won the breakup. I think we all can agree on that. But I think there may be a bigger takeaway that Broussard turned me on to in the commercial break is like, more than Kyrie winning the trade, Isaiah Thomas is the biggest loser perhaps in NBA history. This trade has destroyed him. What's the bigger takeaway? Kyrie winning the trade or Isaiah Thomas never getting anywhere close to a max contract?
Yeah, I mean, I feel terrible for him because he's making $6.5 million a year after being 5th in the MVP vote. And you look at some guys, Allen Crabbe, Evan Turner, Chandler Parsons. We could go down the line, guys who've gotten, 18+ million a year. I wouldn't be surprised if this summer he gets, because the market's not going to be what it was. I got to be honest, I hope this isn't the case. I could see him getting a mid-level exception for multiple years.
Well, you think about it, too. In Boston, you figure if you're Isaiah, you led the team, you got the #1 seed, your agent is saying next year is your big year, okay? You're going to get the max deal. Injury happens, out. Okay, I'm going to Cleveland. LeBron leaves, he comes, he says, I'm going to get the max deal. I'll get traded. I mean, you feel bad for the young man because of the situation, but I'm going to go back and I said this. Danny Ainge knew something.
Yep.
Danny Ainge knew, 1, the injury, how bad he was injured. 2, that he really couldn't lead Boston to where ultimately he thought they needed to be. So from a general manager perspective, shrewdness, he did the right thing. But you do feel for Isaiah what other dudes getting paid.
Because he's 29.
Where he didn't get a chance to get his.
We are missing the Kyrie part of this, right? I mean, people crushed Kyrie Irving.
I mean, Kyrie laughing right now.
How could you? But you said, what's bigger? Okay? How could you leave LeBron James and 7 straight? It's a guarantee you're going to the finals again. How could you do
like
that?
Colin.
We crushed him, okay? And I'm sitting there going like, man, Kyrie Irving's pretty good now. And now he's got his own team in the Celtics that if this thing continues to blow up, they might get to the finals this year without Gordon Hayward. And you got Danny Ainge, who, if I'm a GM, I got his cell phone number blocked. Don't call me, because every trade he ends up winning. You got Jason Tatum, you got Jaylen Brown. He's sitting there laughing. Look, Isaiah Thomas's reputation and really his value was already established in this trade. We should have known better. It was a 3-for-1, right? So in order to get this trade made, they had to include Jay Crowder, a starter. They had to include that Brooklyn pick. Otherwise, it wouldn't have gotten it done. So I think even the Cavs knew what Isaiah Thomas's value is. Kyrie is the one that is more, his win is more pronounced than the loss of IT.
Well, here's the thing. It's all about expectations. Kyrie has ended up in a great situation. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But what are the expectations? Kyrie can have a great year, not get to the finals, and nope, it's a great year for Kyrie.
Sounds like
LeBron has to get to the finals. But that's the thing. Is Kyrie Irving any closer to a championship now than he was with LeBron? I say if he had stayed in Cleveland, he's closer to a championship or getting to the finals. He still would be a perennial all-star. The only thing he gained, and again, he ended up well, but the only thing he got here that he didn't have there is he may be in the MVP conversation. That's it. He's going to be a perennial.
Hold on.
He got a better coach out of this.
Well, a better coach, but
correct.
Again,
That's always been my argument. Like, if he can get Isaiah Thomas to average 29 points, what can he do? What can Brad Stevens do?
Kyrie's not putting up the same numbers Isaiah
I understand, and it hasn't actually. They're 17 and 12 here over the last 29.
That's what I'm saying.
But people aren't paying attention to it because it's not the drama of LeBron. But remember, you're taking it into context that Gordon Hayward's hurt. Like we would, if Gordon Hayward was healthy right now, we would say Cleveland's the second best team in the East.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I don't think that's a guarantee.
But you just said
Tatum probably wouldn't be doing as much as he's doing
it's
at
fair.
Brown.
It's fair. We're like revisionist history or whatever. Like I said at the time of the injury, this helps the Celtics long-term, hurts them short-term. But when Gordon Hayward returns, you got Hayward under contract long-term, you got Kyrie, you got Tatum for 3 more years on a rookie deal, and Jaylen Brown. Like, dude, yes, they are closer to a championship.
Now? Than if he had stayed in Cleveland playing with LeBron?
Again, it's an impossible comparison because Gordon Hayward's hurt.
Just blew the whole thing up.
But LeBron and Kyrie.
They just said we lost the trade.
LeBron and Kyrie. Well, they did lose the trade. But I'm saying for Kyrie Irving, if it's about winning a championship, he's getting more individual love, and he's happier as a person. But is he any closer to a title?
What more do you need?
Because when they get better, I'm talking about in basketball. If it's about winning championships.
Are the Cavs winning a championship this year?
No.
Okay. So
next year.
But
next year.
But with Kyrie, they'd have a better chance of doing that than Boston
with Kyrie
would.
right now.
Yeah, but
and even next year, okay, what about those boys in Philly? I mean, they're going to be coming pretty soon. Toronto is arguably just as good as Boston, if not better. I mean, it's not like Boston's going to run through the East even if LeBron leaves.
They have Gordon Hayward, Jason Tatum
Gordon
next
Hayward's
year.
a one-time All-Star.
But again, if he's their second or third best player, do you believe in Jason Tatum?
Yeah.
You believe in Jalen Brown?
I think they're going to put together a package.
They got to move
and go get Anthony Davis.
They're going to have to move one up. They're going to have to.
Right.
Why?
Because
why? Hold on, Doug.
Here's the reason why. It's almost like bringing Andrew Wiggins into Cleveland. It's going to stymie his growth.
Yep.
It's going to stymie because LeBron is so ball dominant, Kyrie was so ball dominant that he wasn't going to be able to grow. So if you got Jason Tatum, you got Gordon Hayward, you got Jaylen Brown, somebody in there is not going to work. Yep. I mean, long term. Short term, you can get away with it. But if you ultimately want to see Jason Tatum be the player he wants to be, he got to play 35,
At the end of the day, though,
minutes.
because I don't want to go too far, but at the end of the day, Kyrie Irving's got to be rather pleased with himself.
He's sitting back here like this.
He avoided a disaster.
I told you. I told you.
He's so good that people are like, maybe the earth is flat.
All right, welcome back. Time for last call. Let's move to college basketball, where we saw two huge upsets last night. Top-ranked Villanova was down 2 starters and ended up falling to unranked St. John's. Meanwhile, number 3 Purdue had their 19-game win streak snapped by number 14 Ohio State. Jim, who should we be more concerned about here, Purdue or Villanova?
I'll say Villanova because of the injuries. Because Phil Booth, who just came back from an injury last year, went out with a hand injury, a third hand injury, and then now Eric Pascal is out. They were already only playing 6, maybe 7 players. So for me, Purdue is built for the long term in regards to depth compared to Villanova.
I'm more concerned about Purdue because I've been tracking them all season. They've been my sleeper team, and they've fallen asleep. They blew out Iowa a couple of Saturdays ago, looked tremendous. And then the last 3 or 4 games, I saw the Ohio State loss coming. I was telling anybody that would listen, Ohio State's going to upset them. And I don't even think Ohio State played that well last night, Jim.
Well, here's the difference. Purdue has an issue when they have to guard one-on-one. The 2 games against Michigan, they struggled and almost lost. Ohio State puts them in positions on the perimeter where they got to guard, and they're not the quickest, most athletic on the perimeter, so they do have their challenges. But if you think about a 1-game series in a regional situation, Purdue can beat certain teams. But now, if they get matched up with a smaller, quicker team, that's where I have an issue.
You and I were texting back and forth when they played Indiana, and I've made the point to you then, I think any well-coached team that's willing to move the ball, Purdue, I love Haas,
right?
But he doesn't move that well. And so I just think any well-coached team is a problem for Purdue.
If I'm playing Purdue, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to double down. If Haas is going to beat me scoring 40 points, then he's going to beat me scoring. I'm not going to give up perimeter 3-point shot and say, big fella, go to work and beat me.
College basketball, quite interesting this year. Hope you're watching on Ball State on Saturday.